Okay, just checking. We're about to go live. Good evening, and I'd like to welcome you and call to order our special council meeting for Monday, February the 12th. I would like to acknowledge that I am an ally of Indigenous peoples. The township of Lucan Biddulph is located on the treaty and traditional territory and ancestral lands of many Indigenous peoples and is covered by several Upper Canada treaties. We recognize and celebrate the contributions of Indigenous communities in our shared cultural heritage. Lucan Biddulph is now home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples and communities that have a unique relationship with the land and its resources and continue to shape the history and economy of the township. We recognize the unique role that Indigenous communities have in the development of our communities. The contribution from Indigenous communities ensure the sharing of unique perspectives and traditional knowledge. The township recognizes the importance of consulting with our Indigenous neighbors and communities in an effort to build constructive, cooperative relationships through meaningful engagements, to inform our decision-making and to build partnerships. We acknowledge historic and ongoing injustices that Indigenous peoples endure in Canada, and we affirm our commitment to honoring Indigenous voices, nations, and cultures, and to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, before we get into this, this is our budget meeting, so we're going to be receiving the reports from the Finance Committee, and Catherine will be walking us through the budget. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to thank Catherine and Tracy and the whole staff in general. But this really is a finance department meeting and document. And from a finance committee perspective, how the documents that you prepared, how the budget was presented, I think really helped with the flow of the discussion. It was easy to understand. We could, go through the documents quite well. But I know that that sort of preparation doesn't come overnight. So I just want to thank you, Tracy and Catherine, for everything that you've done to put this document together. I know that the senior staff has been a support to you, so appreciative to the department heads that this is the document that's in front of us. But I think anybody looking at the document will certainly be able to understand it and be able to understand how decisions have been made and why the recommendations are that they are. So thank you and congratulations. And I think I'll turn it over to you. Did you want to speak to the Finance Committee minutes at all?
No, they were just included for your information. So you had the background of what was discussed so that hopefully answered some of your questions ahead of the meeting.
Thanks. We've got 3 minutes in front of us, sets of minutes, and they are just for information. We don't have to accept them or anything. So they're just, did anybody have any? I guess those will all form discussion as we go on. Okay, I'll turn it over to you then for the staff report, 2024 draft budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. So tonight, staff and I are pleased to present to you the 2024 draft budget. As mentioned, the detailed review of the operating budget was done during the Finance Committee meetings that we had January 25th, 29th, and February 5th. So I just want to say my thanks to staff and the members of the committee for all their work and input to get us this far. It certainly is a team effort. A copy of the details is provided in the agenda package along with, we said, the minutes, and then just going to go through this presentation and we'll get to the recommendations later on, but I just want to go through how those changes look in some of the numbers, but also as some education for our residents about the taxes.
I'm just going to interrupt you for one moment and just let everybody know that's watching online that Councillor Hodgins is joining us virtually. So he may have his camera off due to connection issues, but he is joining us and will be able to provide input and ask questions if need be.
Okay, so the revenues, this chart shows the various revenue sources which township uses to fund our general operations and services. And then, of course, the largest revenue source comes from our property tax. And there are three components of property tax: the municipal, county, and education portion that goes to the school boards. The tax revenue shown on the previous slide represents the municipal portion of the taxes that is raised to fund the township services, which is only about 52% of the total tax bill. County council sets the county tax rate and the province of Ontario sets the education tax rate, but the township collects the taxes and then forwards them to the respective agencies. So this chart breaks down the property tax classes where the revenue is generated from. It's no surprise that our highest is residential and farm, but the industrial class is starting to increase as that land gets developed. And we should also see a rise in the commercial amount as new development gets assessed. The figures are the municipal share of the taxes at a 3.5% municipal tax rate increase. And this, along with some other measures, is necessary to balance the budget. Using this rate increase, the budget will have a shortfall of about $85,000. The recommendation is to transfer funds from the tax rate stabilization reserve to cover the shortfall. Otherwise, the tax rate would have to be set an increase of 5.08% or decrease expenses. We'll get into that later. So if we have that tax rate at this draft budget, the average single family dwelling in Leuca-Badolph is valued at $280,000, and we'll see an increase of $65 in their tax bill for the year, or $1.25 a week. This is the municipal share of the taxes only. The province announced that the education tax rates will not change for 2024. And the county change in tax rate has not been determined at this time. They're still going through their budget deliberations. This chart displays the assessment value for the different tax classes. Again, the change is small, and this is due because we had the delay of the property reassessment from the province and MPAC. So these changes from year over year are just from growth, both positive and negative. So this chart shows the expenses for the general government. Of course, you see the larger categories are the administration, which includes all the administration salaries, our insurance, utilities, economic development, our events like Canada Day and Summerfest, our legal costs, and IT. The public works is another big section, but I'll break that out in the next slide. Our protective services includes our police, fire, building inspectors, bylaw officers, crossing guards, health and safety, and our conservation authorities. And the reserves is the biggest portion, and that's where we're putting money away or saving for future projects. Okay, so the public works, there's the different categories there, but it's all different services. The larger piece is on the general, and that's for things for all the repairs and maintenance of their equipment at the public workshop, utilities, insurance, their tools, sidewalk repairs, drainage, culverts, tree planting, that kind of thing. And then salaries and benefits are broken out over all the categories except for street lighting. Another area of the budget is our Parks and Rec. And this slide shows the various revenue streams for Parks and Rec operations. The township levy is the portion of the taxes collected that fund the Parks and Rec services. Another large piece there is, of course, our ice rentals. And the expense side of Parks and Rec, you can see our biggest cost there is administration, but of course it takes a big team of dedicated staff to run the programs and maintain the community center, our arena, our parks, and other facilities such as that. Okay, so that's kind of give you background of what it looks like and some education there for more residents. I know it's probably all not new news to councils here. So what I want to go through is our meat and potatoes, I guess, of the presentation. So the finance committee came up with some recommended changes to the original draft budget, and we'll just touch on those each one as we go through. So the first one is in regards to recycling. So starting in April of this year, the cost of recycling becomes the producer's responsibility. And you remember that Francis from Blue Water Recycling talked about this at the last council meeting. Oops. In the first draft of the budget, we had the full recycling bin charge being collected for the full year, with the difference between the revenue and expense from Blue Water going to a new reserve for green bin or recycling. But the recommendation from the finance committee is, at this point, is to only charge the recycling bin fee until April. The revenue line and the expense line would then match, and we would not need the transfer to reserves. So we wouldn't need to create that new reserve account. And this would save residents $57 per bin per recycling bin for 2024. So taking that $65 tax rate increase into account, less the $57 savings, the average homeowner would see a net impact of $8 for the year. But those are a couple options there, and that's now up for discussion if you accept the recommendation or want to go back to we had in the first draft.
Okay, thank you for that, Catherine. I don't know, did we want to go through all the recommendations or discuss each one of them on their own? Certainly, you can ask questions now, and then I guess after they're all presented, if council wants to make changes, that's probably at the time after they've all been presented to make recommendations. But with regards to the recycling, is there any comment on the recommendation coming from the Finance Committee? Thinking back to the reflection of Francis, presenting last week, and okay. I don't see Councillor Hodgins' hand up, so okay. Well, I didn't, sure.
There was, I guess the main reason for this is I guess I was struggling with leaving it on there and not providing the service. And I think that's what the finance committee kind of went back and forth on, should we just leave it on there because, next year when Catherine speaks, she'll be sitting there saying, okay, the maybe tax rate is whatever, and your average increase is $45 plus X amount of dollars, because, I think we need to make it known then right now that the intent is to do green, I think our intent, is to do green waste pickup, and that it's almost like a holiday right now for our residents. I'll call it a holiday that we will be, though, and the expectations is the expense is going to be the same as the recycling. So that will be coming back on your bill when that service is provided. So I was kind of going back and forth on it, but I am satisfied with what our committee did decide to do, was hold back since we're not providing the service, start it back up when we do provide a service that is costing us money.
I know there was a lot of discussion about the reserve, and I think having Francis here last week, he indicated if we were to go to a green bin pickup, that there wouldn't be capital costs expected, that all of it would be financed through the bins. And for me, then I don't see the need for starting a reserve, but councillors might feel different. Councillor Hodgins.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to share my comments on this. I agree with the recommendation of the committee. I know we did discuss it with Francis the last meeting, but I think it makes sense not to charge the fees because it's kind of a new, different service. So I think it's appropriate to revisit that when we get to looking at green bins in the future.
Thank you for those comments. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the next one then, Catherine.
Okay, so these are the other changes that affect the tax rate. So I'll just go through, I'll just explain them all. It's kind of laid out in the report, but I'll just explain them all and then we can jump back and see what you think. So the council salaries, which includes the HT and the CPP, we have to pay on those. So in the consultant recommended changes, there was quite a large increase, and so it was discussed and recommended if we phase in those changes over 3 years plus adding COLA, and we'll use the same COLA. The COLA means cost of living adjustment. Use the same COLA as the salary grid, and we're proposing 3% COLA for this year. And if we phase it in, that'll save 24,122 off of this 2024 budget. At the same time, we would freeze the per diem rate with no cost of living adjustment. Because you remember from the consultant's presentation, our per diem rates were quite a lot higher than our comparators. So it was recommended we'll just freeze them and not apply COLA until we analyze that down the road again. The other item in the council section was to add a new expense line for the mayor's office at an amount of $1,000. This is to provide a small budget to help with some of those duties with different meetings and promotions and things to do within that office. So that's brand new. That adds $1,000 to expense. The next section is the fire levy. So the Lucan Biddulph Fire Department met with their meeting and approved their budget or recommended budget in the fall, and they requested a 37% increase to the levy contribution from Lucan Biddulph. So we looked at that, and it's recommended we'll give a 25% increase, and that would save 24,827 off the 2024 budget. The policing area, we're going to add $10,000 to the budget for the police services board. This is a new change for 2024. There's a legislation to have a police services board throughout with the joint one with the county, or with all the lower tiers in the county and then there's the 10,000 represents our administration cost to support that. The parking enforcement enhancement in the bylaw area. So in our initial budget, we discussed having some enhanced parking enforcement throughout the year. So this right now, we really have it only on a regular basis during the winter months. And if you want to have it in the spring, summer, fall, 10 hours a week, it would cost 30,000. We thought that was extreme, or maybe not. There's discussion about that if we needed that, and it was decide to include or recommend including 2 hours a week at a cost of about $8,000. So that would save in the budget $22,000. So the enhancement to the pedestrian crossing, this was in relation to enhancing the pedestrian crossing at the community center, adding some overhead lights. But we decided, recommended not to include that. That's a saving $8,500. We have other traffic control or calming measures in the capital budget. Maybe we can look at what's needed throughout the main street and other areas of the town. The tree program, the tree power program. This is an initiative with the conservation authorities, and there's discussion that $1,000 wasn't maybe quite enough. So we decided to increase that by $1,500 wasn't enough. We increase that by $1,000 to be $2,500 to support that program in 2024. It's something new, but a lot of the work will be done by the conservation authority. The Lucan Area Heritage donation If you remember, they came as a delegation to council requesting an increase to their annual donation. They wanted to add $25,000. The recommendation was to include that in the budget with no change with that increase. And we talked about having them, the society should earmark this as and put it away until we figure out what's going on with the taxes. There was a change with their losing the exempt status, but we're working with them to kind of get that back. So in the meantime, it's suggested that they hold on to that increase until we sort that out. Under the reserves, under savings and the streetscape improvements, in the budget, it was just in the first draft, we had $75,000 to show commitment to the streetscape strategies, but we're reducing this reserve by 25,000 to be 50,000 for 2024. And I think this still shows a significant commitment to the streetscape strategies and by building up a reserve for future implementation. In the Parks and Rec area in Spencer Park, we're removing the $3,000, the cost to install the playground equipment, because we believe we discussed and came down to it that cost should be part of the capital cost of that project. And that'll be funded through, we funded that cost of the playground through development charges. So we'll just do it over there. The Market Street Park, we added $6,000 to repair the Scout Hall roof, rather than as a capital cost replacing the Scout Hall roof at this time. So all of those changes affect the tax rate, reduce the amount needed to raise by $89,449. We also have one other point to make with, we'd like to move forward with the sale of the surplus property on Nicoline Ave. So move forward with readying that, the empty lot on Nicoline, and then we have the net proceeds from that sale can be reused to replenish reserves. If you choose to take money out of this tax rate stabilization to budget or to balance the budget, then you'll have some, hopefully some revenue there to put back in reserves or use how council wishes. So all of those changes, I'll reiterate that so now to balance the budget with those changes, we need another $272,938 would need to be raised. And this would require a 5.08% tax rate increase. However, 3.5% tax rate increase is recommended, and this would raise $188,135 in revenue with the remaining shortfall of $84,803. And then it's further recommended that the tax stabilization reserve be used to fund this budget shortfall. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you very much, Catherine. So we'll deal with the recommendations in front of us, and then if council, because you've all had the budget in front of you and have been able to go through it. If there's any places where you've wanted to make changes, then we can discuss that. So the recommendations in front of you, does council have any questions on those recommendations or comment? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, regarding year-round parking enforcement, I'm not in favor of that at all. I think it is utility to have parking enforcement in the winter to facilitate snow removal and that sort of thing, but I don't know that it has practical application throughout the year. If we are doing street construction or whatever, we can deal with it on a street-by-street basis accordingly, but I don't think that it would be an appropriate thing. If parking enforcement is a revenue stream, if that's what we're considering it as, I think that wouldn't be a good thing for our residents. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Just on that, it's just 2 hours a week throughout the year, and it would be targeted. It's not the additional one. Maybe Jeff can speak to it a little bit more. Yep.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So we did talk about this. One of the biggest things that we get as staff here are parking complaints. We get them on Main Street. We get them on no parking, people parking across sidewalks. We get people parking in no parking zones, and all sorts of things like that. And right now, basically, we just have to call by law to react to those items. So we're never, we're always behind the complaint. So if we can do some proactive enforcement, then we can do some patrols in some areas that maybe are being targeted or being parked illegally in, and that sort of thing. So that's where that program would come in, is that we can try to, try to enforce some of these parking issues before they get to be complaints coming in from residents.
Counselor Westman?
Yeah, I understand that part of it, but I'm concerned that it's kind of a slippery slope, that it could, it could be a matter of convenience that it becomes more and more and more, and I don't want to see that. So I think I came in 18 years ago with one of those as my campaigned message, was that parking enforcement needed to be utilitarian rather than revenue stream generated. So that's my.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Manders?
Yeah, and just so you know, we got, which was great, the committee there got input from the rest of council, and that helped to also form this decision. And we did, that's why actually from some of your comments, we reduced it 22,000 down to 8. And again, it's some of the real pain points is it's certainly not revenue generating. I'd almost call it traffic calming. I mean, when you come into town, it's the people that park on the edge of like by the Bank of Montreal and where the license bureau is, right at the stop sign, you got to pull out so far. It's stuff like that. It's certainly not the hourly parking or things like that, but it's the illegal parking that's creating traffic, like it almost be used as traffic calming solution because of potential accidents. But anyways, but that is why we reduced it 22,000 from comments. So yeah.
Okay. Are there any other discussion points from councillors on any of these recommendations in front of you? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. With respect to the enhancements around the pedestrian crossing at the community center, so I see we're taking that out, or the committee's recommended taking that out as a cost saving, and just wanted to get, I guess, more information. The plan was to have more lighting for the crossing, or more flashing lights. Is that correct? And if we are going to get away from that option, are there any other things that we can undertake in 2024 to further review safety in that area around that pedestrian crosswalk?
Yes, absolutely. I'll get Jeff to speak to what was the proposal of what it was going to look like. And then we can have discussion about how the committee got to their decision.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, so the $8,500 was put in for the upgrade of flashing lights above the street. Right now we have signage in that place. It all meets the traffic, the Ontario Traffic Manual design, but the flashing lights are an addition that could be added if it was deemed that we wanted more lighting there. So that strictly is about the lighting itself.
And really the discussion that came that we had at the committee level, the lights that are there now are acting appropriately, and the members of the finance committee both shared stories of being on Main Street from quite a distance and being able to see those flashing lights. And so it's not necessarily an issue with the crosswalk. It's an issue with driver education. And we had talked about maybe using that money in different areas, but Jeff's already got some plans for some other areas in Lucan where he can install some traffic calming and some other measures. So we felt that at this time that just to take the enhancements off, because they are just the arms across the road, and that's how they would be upgraded, and or how crossing would be upgraded, and the committee just felt that at this time, it really wasn't warranted, that it was really more driver error and driver errors on the driver, not an issue with the actual crossing. Councillor Hodgins?
I just want to say thank you for all that information and the comments, and the discussion and how we got to taking it out. Yeah, maybe that I agree that maybe just adding more lights isn't the solution to the issue, but I know we are doing some other traffic calming and some safety reviews on some of our roads. So I think it is an area that you know, on behalf of council, I think we should still keep a focus on that and see what can be done. You know, maybe it's looking at the parking around that crosswalk and sight lines, other things, but thanks for that information.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any of the recommendations that are in front of you? Okay. Did council have anything, any other line items in the budget that maybe drew their attention that you wanted to speak to in the general budget? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Referring to the, and my apologies if we're going to go to this after, but the capital list, could I ask a question on that, or do you want to wait until we go over that?
I think we're going to hit the capital budget. It's a few slides down.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
hold till after
Yeah.
that then.
Okay, so everybody's good with the general budget? No comments or? Okay, all right, then we'll move on to the water system.
Okay, I just included, so the water and wastewater slides, kind of see where we landed with those two departments, because as you know, those two systems are funded by the users and do not rely on the tax rate for those to fund those expenses. And so these two slides show where we landed, and of course, and as well the list of the capital projects proposed for 2024. So some of these are carryovers, and all of the proposed water and wastewater projects are funded from their respective reserves. So I don't have anything else to say about those. If you have any questions about those two systems, they don't really affect the tax rate.
Okay, were there any questions on either one of those budgets? Councillor Hodgins?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I have a general question for, I guess, water and wastewater. We budget a certain amount that we put into reserve, and I guess to staff is how do we determine what the right number is to put into reserve? And maybe that kind of ties into the rate study that would be done or that we're planning on doing, but how do we know that we're, I guess, putting enough money into reserves for water and wastewater?
Jeff?
Yeah, and through the mayor, so we do have a financial plan in place on the water side of things, which we've review every 5 years. And the idea is that it's updated on our reserves that we do need to have in place. So that's the kind of the starting point. The wastewater side of things, we do something similar, but we do it more in-house. And a lot of that is a little bit easier at this point that we, or in the past, because we, you know, our wastewater mains and that sort of thing have all been they're not in the need of being replaced like our water mains are. Having just said that, that's what we've been doing in the past. The idea is, as Councillor Hodgins said, that we are looking at a water rate study, and part of that water rate study is to develop two financial plans that will exactly lay out a 5-year plan for capital and for reserves that we need to be saving for and spending on in the future. So so that's where we kind of in the past and then where we're going in the future.
Thank
Okay,
you.
does that help, Counselor Hodgins?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on the water or wastewater system? Okay, on to the capital budget.
So the capital side of things for not including water and wastewater. Corey, remember we had our meeting where these projects were presented in November. Then the finance committee reviewed these projects and made recommendations for the timelines. Because at the capital meeting and again at the finance committee meeting, there was an extensive discussion because there was an extensive list and we talked about how much staff could realistically take on in 1 year. So you'll see that some projects will be deferred to 2025 and beyond. And then you'll see there's the information's in the attachments to the report. And then a summary of our reserve balances to give you perspective on that as well. So any questions on capital project?
Okay, Counselor Hodgins, did you have questions on the capital lines?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one on the grader item. Just wanted to inquire as to whether we think $550,000 would be enough for a new grader, or if we're pretty comfortable with that number, or if it would potentially need to be increased based on just the price of things these days.
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, so the 550 was a number that we put together in the fall. So we are going back out to get some pricing on it. From what I've heard, it is maybe looking closer to 600. But I haven't got the exact figure on that. Some of it will come down to attachments that we put on the grader, such as the snow plow and the snow wing. Yeah, that figure was originally put together in the fall when we started capital. So and it is based on 2024 pricing. So it's supposed to be up to date, but I have heard that some of the graders are coming back in around 600 to 620. So there could be an update on that.
Did you have any other questions on any other line items in the capital budget, Counselor Hodgins?
Just on the All Wheels Park item in Parks and Recreation, just wanted to confirm the value of the grant, and could I be reminded of, do we have a location pinned down for that that facility?
The All Wheels Park, we got the grant, and it's about half of that value, I believe, and that location will be in Elm Street Park. And that's what we put in, that's what was approved for the grant, and that was via recommendation from the Pratt Committee.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Regan, did I see your hand up?
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you. I was just wondering about the soccer field complex and ongoing, unless I've missed it, there is no amount in there. And I was just concerned there's no amount in there unless I'm missing something. Yeah, it just has it just says ongoing. Yeah, no amount, and I'm just concerned if that's why that's not there.
I think that's just, we had the same amount as in 2023, and we're just carrying that forward as WIP until we finish that. I don't think there's anything more significant other than what we talked about in the capital meeting with the hydro piece of it. It's all part of that same project. So yes, it is ongoing and should be finished
Okay,
as we go along. So yeah, it's still on the list to be done. Just no updated number. Let's just carry forward. My apologies for not putting that in.
all right, okay, thank you very much. Okay. Thanks.
I was just going to add to that, if I may, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I off the top of our head, I don't think we have the amount that's outstanding on the original contract that was awarded. We're all aware of some hiccups along the road there that we're trying to deal with, and that's, so again, that's, as Catherine said, that's a work in progress, and it will continue to be in progress, but that we actually committed to that back in 2023. So that's probably why the number, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, but that's why the number isn't in there, because we're already committed to it. It's a carry forward from previous years.
Well, there's other projects on that list that are carryover that have figures
Yeah.
in there too. So
I'm just thinking, sorry.
We can figure that out.
All right. Okay, I just think it should be there. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Catherine.
So you don't have any other questions on any other capital line items? Any other questions on capital line items? I just wondered, and I know it's not fair to ask necessarily a Parks and Rec question, but we did talk about the pool heater. And the decision from the committee was that, you know, if it fails, then we would do something, but that the, Jeff was going to look to see if we needed a lead time. Did he ever get back with any information, or we haven't heard anything on that yet?
I haven't heard anything. That's I just noted on the chart there that, once he finds out, we can bring information back, but it's, we know it's there. It's, I think that's the amount and we'd be committed to, but we definitely need to know the lead times for.
Okay. What is next? Okay. Oh, Jeff, yeah, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if I just might, because there is some information with the capital that, it, just so if we did have a meeting in the, original one with late fall or early winter, and there has been a little bit more update on this sheet. So there is a couple of comments. I just think it's probably appropriate that I do mention. And again, I'll kind of just a little bit of background on this does relate back to the question that Councillor Hodgins asked about the financial plans and stuff. So we do have an asset management plan which we follow. The asset management plan does have the wastewater, water and our roads, as well as our parks and that sort of thing in it. So we do follow the asset management plan pretty close. And one of the one of the items in the asset management plan that is coming up on the next list was the Water Street construction project. And it's grown into a little bit bigger project because there's 2 cement culverts that cross Water Street that have to do with the Bend Drain. And they're going to need some improvement, which we then have to go through the fisheries and get some permits on. So that project's actually a 2-year project. And it'll start this year and then move into 2025 for a finish there. So that was more information that never got presented last time through. So I just wanted to bring that through. Another one that I just wanted to, some of these are carries over, so I'm not going to go through them all, but another one I just wanted to touch base on was the Saintsbury line paved shoulder and lighting. A large portion of that is for the lights themselves, which when we talked about in the fall, that is an investment for the future. We would build them so that they would be permanent and they would light the shoulder up. Having said that, I did say that the paving is coming with the county, and that'll be done in 2024. So I think that's if council agrees with that, that's a good item to move forward with. I think it would be an item that I could come back with if council had wanted more information on the lighting, because that's the large portion of that, and it can be done whether it's this year or a follow-up portion of that. But we talked about that being a safety factor if you widen out the shoulders there. So I just wanted to remind council about that one. And the other one we had a little bit of a talk about at the committee side of thing was the sidewalk upgrades, which I'm kind of excited about, because we do have some great sidewalks out there, but there's a couple of sections that if we don't keep looking at accessibility, we do need some upgrades in a couple areas. And we did talk at the committee level that some sidewalk upgrades on William Street would be able to link that item there and bring it into town, bring it up to accessibility standards. So yeah, I just wanted those comments.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff, for that. Catherine, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to add, when we're talking about the Water Street, that rough estimate of 1.5 million over 2 years. The majority of that, we're hoping to use our OCIF and CCBF funds for that. So in this plan right now, we have in the reserve summary, we're pulling about $200,000 from the construction reserve, and the remainder we anticipate we could use OCIF and our gas tax or CCBF. We know what we have for 2024 for OCIF and for the next few years for the CCBF, and we anticipate the amount for OCIF in 2025 would be at most, if they have the same strategy, 15% less than what we have now. But this year we had 15% more than last year. So somewhere in that same range with those numbers, rough estimates, then we're in good shape with that project.
Thank you for that. Okay, any other comments on the capital? Okay, then I guess we're at. Oh, Jaden, sorry, didn't see that. Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks. Just a new one that came up. With that Sainsbury line, a paved shoulder and lights project, is the county going to cost share a portion of that with township?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we did touch a little bit. So they will support the portion from Gilmore out to Fallon, widening out the shoulders. That is set out as a bicycling path or a bicycling segment. So they will cover that cost. It's really the extending the shoulders from Gilmore down to basically Market Street or the Whitfield Drain, where we stopped with the last project. That would be the responsibility of the municipality.
Okay, and just to follow up, the $380,000, is that then just the township's portion, or is that the total project cost estimate?
Yeah, that would be the township's portion, but that includes street lighting. So a
Okay.
large portion of that
Yeah.
would be the street lighting. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to the recommendations.
Okay, so we went through all the recommendations, and again, to summarize, so to balance the proposed budget, when we can increase the tax rate by 3.5%, as well as fund the shortfall from reserves. And so now council can consider the recommended motion to adopt the 2024 budget or defer to a future meeting. Or you can adopt a different, there's a recommendation there for the tax rate increase, but you can discuss different ones. And then the final tax rate bylaw won't be presented until we know what the county tax rates are. And that'll be later in the spring, I assume.
Okay, discussion on the recommendation that's in front of you and setting the municipal tax rate increase. Councillor Hodgins.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I apologize. I had one more thing that just came up on the capital, if I may.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm, like some projects that don't have 2024 costs, such as the trails plan, it shows it as a phase in 2025 and 2026, but we still see the cost there. So I just wanted to confirm whether is that budget for 120,000 to the trails plan, is that being approved here, or is that just for information for?
That's just for information. That doesn't affect the capital spending, doesn't, yeah, it's just, it would be a if we wanted to do something this year, then that was going to be the recommendation sort of thing to phase it in, but yeah, that's just information.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, we're not approving a multi-year capital budget at this time. It's going to give you an idea where we go, but we will talk again about 2025 projects when we meet to talk about that capital, probably in the same time, around November. So just give you an idea of where we're heading or what that looks like, so.
Okay. So back to the recommendation in front of you. So as Catherine said, the recommendation is a 3.5% municipal tax increase, and to balance it, taking money out of the tax rate stabilization. So discussion on that. You happy with that rate? Do you want it to be different? Do you? Okay. Deputy Mayor Manders?
No, I thought that was a good compromise between what Catherine had worked towards on everyone's input and the committees, and then also using the tax stabilization and the importance of that, because it's that is why it's, you know, that's the use for it. And it's great that we got a healthy reserve there, and certainly we're lucky in future growth years. I think that's a great place to put any extra revenue. But yeah, I just think it's reasonable in light of inflation and everything else. I do think it's a reasonable conclusion we came to. So anyways, I'm in favor of what's presented.
Okay, thank you. Catherine?
If you want to compare the neighboring municipalities or the other lower tiers in Middlesex County that we know of are in that range between 3% and 4% of a tax rate increase.
Okay, so at this time, if there's no further comments, you do have a motion. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hodgins, sorry. And I said to myself, I was going to watch your camera and I was going to watch your screen for your hand up, but anyways, Councillor Hodgins.
Yeah, just wanted to share my comments on the supportive of this, and I want to thank Catherine and all the staff and the committee for all their work on the budget and finding some good cost savings where we could. I agree with the Deputy Mayor's comments. It's great that we have that tax stabilization reserve that we can help the rate a bit as well. So I think it's a great budget. It's been a great process. All the information's been very good, and just want to thank everyone for their work, and I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate those comments, Councillor Hodgins. We do have a recommended motion in front of us. I'll entertain it now. Should I do it now? Yeah. Which would be that there'd be a 3.5% municipal tax increase with the balance of $84,803 to be taken from the tax rate stabilization fund. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So now we do have to go into closed session. And I would ask, oh, what's that? Second mission. What second mission? You want to do that one first? Okay. All right. So part of the budget that was recommended had to do with the municipal salary grid. And the motion in front of us for that is that council directs staff to implement, excuse me, a 3% inflationary adjustment to the 2024 municipal salary grid. So if I could get a mover and a seconder for that one, please. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all in favor? And that's carried. And we do have to go into in closed session, and that is to discuss items that are of an identifiable individuals. And of course, that's pursuant to the Municipal Act. If I can get a mover and a seconder to move us into closed session at 6:54.